If your taste for conversation has thinned, if your sleep scrapes you awake at odd hours, if a simple dinner feels like a performance you can't tolerate anymore, this is not a mistake. If you have a growing sense that the ground under your life is rearranging itself and you can't yet see the pattern, you are in the middle of something real, an inner recalibration that often feels messy before it becomes meaningful. That's the short answer to the question posed in the title: why awakening feels chaotic before it makes sense. The long answer is what I want to sit with you about now. I say this as someone who has stumbled through the fog. I have woken at 3 a.m. with a list of truths I couldn't hold in the daytime. I have found my appetite and my friends changing in ways that felt like loss. I have mistaken spiritual sensitivity for breakdown. I remember the disorientation, and I remember, too, the fragile clarity that followed when integration finally began. You are not failing. You are shifting. That is the frame we'll keep. Awakening as an internal frequency shift, an opening of perception, an alteration in how your heart and nervous system register the world, rather than a status award or a problem to fix immediately. Before we move on, a practical note. If you are experiencing severe anxiety, profound dissociation, or physical symptoms that worry you, seek medical or mental health support. Spiritual openings can look like raw nerves, but they can also intersect with medical conditions that deserve care. A wise path often includes both prayerful listening and professional help. If this message is landing in you, if you feel seen by these few sentences, consider connecting with others on a similar path. There are communities, conversations, and gentle guides who can hold you as you navigate this. If you'd like, subscribe for more reflections like this and join others walking the same road. Let's walk slowly through signs that commonly appear in the middle of an awakening. These aren't checklists you must complete. They are patterns many of us notice when the inner frequency shifts. For each sign, I'll give a small image, something you might recognize in daily life, and a simple, practical way to respond. First, you find you can no longer stomach falsity. Small talk that once lubricated social life now feels abrasive. You might be at a family gathering, lamps on, sweets on the table, and the polite scripts feel like sand in your throat. You begin to prefer honest silence to flattering noise. This isn't judgment. It is a narrowing of your energy bandwidth toward what is real. Practical cue. Notice where you leak energy. When a conversation leaves you tired instead of enlivened, give yourself permission to step back. Ask one question in those moments. Is this authentic? And let that question guide how long you stay. Second, your emotional reactivity changes. In the midst of old triggers, you find a growing space between stimulus and response. Where you once snapped, you now sense a pause, a chance to choose. That doesn't mean emotions disappear. Often they arrive with more intensity first before settling. I remember a colleague's offhand criticism landing on me like a hot coal. Instead of reflexively retaliating, I felt my body tighten, and then a strange calm that let me answer from a steadier place. Practical cue. Practice a 5-breath buffer when you feel triggered. Inhale, count, and let your voice be guided by what's left after breath. Third, synchronicities accelerate. You begin to notice meaningful repetitions, a song lyric everywhere, the same phrase from different people, doors opening that used to be locked. One woman I know kept seeing the same 3 numbers on clocks for weeks. In time, those numbers corresponded to a person who would become important to her healing. Synchronicity isn't magic in the sense of control. It's pattern recognition on a broader scale. Practical cue. Keep a small notebook of odd repetitions and coincidences. Over weeks, you'll see threads form that guide where to place attention. Fourth, time becomes fluid. You might experience déjà vu more often, dreams that continue the day's themes, or the sense that cause and effect aren't linear. Sometimes you'll receive an impression about a choice, and months later, watch it resolve in ways you couldn't predict. This is disorienting because cultural life prizes linear planning. Awakening remembers that time is more like a spiral. Practical cue. When you get a strong sense about a future feeling or path, treat it as data rather than mandate. Test it slowly and keep your feet on the ground. Fifth, your body becomes a loud teacher. Diet tastes change, certain environments feel physically intolerable, or you notice tingling, heat, or pressure as your nervous system recalibrates. A friend who grew up in a noisy city found quiet markets now overwhelmed her with a strange pressure behind the eyes. Gradually, she learned to move through those spaces with shorter visits and deliberate grounding. Important: these sensations are subjective experiences, not medical diagnoses. If sensations are frightening or debilitating, reach out to a clinician. Practical cue: develop a simple grounding ritual, feet on the earth, 3 slow breaths, and a sip of water, whenever your body starts to signal distress. Sixth, you lose the urge to defend yourself. Where you once built walls of argument or armor of proof, you now feel less invested in proving your worth. This is not cowardice. It is sovereignty. You begin to recognize that being right is less nourishing than being awake. Yet this is a tender area. Humility must not become passivity. Practical cue: try the practice of speech with restraint. Before you speak in defense, ask, is this about peace or proving? Let peace guide you more often. Seventh, your dreams intensify and become symbolic guides. You might have vivid cinematic dreams that stay with you into the morning, or a recurring image that feels like an inner teacher. These dreams often bring fragments of shadow to integrate: an angry figure speaking truths you've avoided, a child inviting you to play. Practical cue: keep a dream journal and write 1 sentence about feeling or lesson before you fall asleep. Over time, patterns will emerge that inform waking choices. Eighth, you begin to see others differently: more compassion, less reactivity. This is not naive kindness, but a sharper empathy. You feel woundedness in people where you once saw only annoyance or offense. With that compassion comes responsibility. Boundaries must be held with care. I remember standing at a bustling market where a woman shouted at her child. In me rose both sorrow and a clear knowledge that I could neither fix the whole world, nor allow harm to continue unchecked. Practical cue: practice compassionate containment. When you feel sorrow for someone, allow the feeling, then choose one small act you can actually do. Listen, hold space, or step away, without trying to rescue every disturbance. If you're hearing some of these signs in your life, you may also be wondering how to tell an awakening from burnout or a medical condition. The distinction is not always clean. Awakening often brings increased capacity for presence over time, even if the early phase feels exhausting, whereas burnout usually leaves you depleted with little renewal after rest. If your symptoms are prolonged or severe, consult a healthcare professional while you continue spiritual practices. A wise journey holds both prayerful attention and practical care. One hard truth I owe you: awakening does not exempt you from pain. In fact, the path often brings old wounds to the surface so they can be healed with new awareness. This is the integration paradox. From a higher vantage, some processes appear like regressions. You might feel more reactive, more tender, more overwhelmed, before a deeper steadiness takes root. That apparent backslide is often the nervous system reworking itself with a broader set of instruments. Be patient with regressions. They are not failure but reorganization. Healing is work. It is not poetic suffering we glorify. It is honest labor. Therapy, supportive relationships, boundaries, spiritual disciplines that rewrites old patterns. We must resist romanticizing struggle as the only route to growth. Responsibility matters. Awakening asks for humility. You can feel chosen without thinking you are better. You can be more awake and also more accountable. True awakening increases honest service, not proud separation. So what do we actually do with this messy, meaningful season? Below is a practical toolbox, 8 disciplines that align with this shift. These are not rigid rules but invitations to tend your inner atmosphere and deepen integration. First, protect your inner atmosphere. Curate what you consume: news, feeds, conversations. If certain media leave you hollow or reactive, limit exposure. If a relationship constantly pulls you into old stories, put a boundary in place. How to start? Choose one source of input to reduce this week and replace it with 30 minutes of silence or reading that feeds your soul. Second, create stillness. Regular sacred quiet isn't optional. Stillness is the laboratory where the inner voice clarifies and the nervous system recalibrates. Try 10 minutes of unguided silence each morning, even if it's just sitting with a cup of tea. Begin by noticing breath. Resist the urge to do something immediately. Third, trust nudges and sharpen discernment. A nudge is subtle, a recurring thought, a soft insistence, a bodily leaning. Test nudges with small experiments before big moves. If you feel called to change jobs, try one small action, an informational chat, a class, a reworking of your weekly schedule, before handing in a resignation. Training discernment means we act with humility and patience. Fourth, release expectations about what awakening should look like. People often have stories, grand visions, radical life changes, instant bliss. Those can happen, but more often awakening weaves through daily life in subtle, uneven ways. Give space for mess. If you constantly compare your journey to someone else's highlight reel, you will miss your own rhythm. Fifth, practice deliberate gratitude as an anchor. Gratitude is not denial of difficulty. It's an energetic stabilizer that prevents despair from taking root. Each evening, name 3 specific things from your day you can be grateful for, even small ones. The way sunlight fell on your hand, a kind message, a quiet moment. Let gratitude be the tether back to presence. Sixth, resist impulsivity. Big decisions made amid intensity often lead to regret. When you feel a sudden urge to upend your life, insert a pause. Sleep on it for a set period, a week, a month. Consult a counsel person you trust, and see whether the inner peace grows or fades. The rule of deep peace is simple. If clarity increases with time, act. If doubt persists, steward patience. Seventh, be honest and raw in prayer. God can take your confusion. Prayer in this season doesn't require polished theology. It often wants real speech. You might say, God, I'm tired and confused. Help me see the next small step. Allow prayer to be conversational and vulnerable. If you don't use that language, translate it into your own terms. What matters is sincerity. Eighth, forgive in advance and release outcomes. Forgiveness is not about condoning harm. It is about freeing your energy from cycles of resentment. You can forgive a person internally while still holding boundaries externally. Practice a simple release. Name the person or wound. Speak a sentence of release aloud or in silence. And commit to one practical boundary that protects you going forward. A safety note here. These practices can be powerful but are not substitutes for clinical care. If your emotional or physical symptoms are severe, reach out to a healthcare provider. Integrating spiritual awakening and psychological support often yields the most sustainable healing. There are a few practical micro-habits that often help in day-to-day reality. Weekly check-ins with one trusted friend who knows your spiritual values. A short nightly ritual that signals rest, dim lights, herbal tea, 3 minutes of breath. A no television after dinner rule for a season. A short morning notebook practice where you list one insight from the night and one small action for the day. Tiny rhythms create steady scaffolding for an unstable time. Let's name humility again. Awakening invites a posture of humble service rather than superiority. You are becoming more sensitive to truth and more compassionate, but sensitivity does not equal superiority. Resist the temptation to spiritualize your pain into status. Holding humility keeps your growth healthy and your relationships sustainable. Another paradox of integration. Sometimes clarity asks you to make hard, ordinary choices. Apologize, leave a job, forgive an old wound, accept therapeutic help. These choices are not flashy. They are the quiet work that grounds transcendence. Elevation without grounding is risky. A light that is not rooted can burn everything around it. I want to pause here and speak directly to anyone who has experienced betrayal or deep relational wounding during this season. Your pain is real, and it deserves compassionate attention. Protect your safety. Seek counsel from a mature friend, a pastor, a therapist. You do not have to process everything alone. Healing often needs witnesses who can hold truth and refuse to collude with minimization. We are not isolated islands. Your awakening contributes to the larger whole. When one life shifts toward compassion, clarity, and sobriety, It nudges the collective field. That's not a call to grandiosity. It's a reminder that individual healing has communal ripple effects. Your willingness to do the inner work is an offering. Before I close, a short invitation you can use right now if you're feeling unmoored. Take 3 minutes. Sit, place your feet on the floor, bring your attention to the breath and ask only one question. What one small next step would honor clarity and protect my grounding? Notice the first small thing that comes. Not the galaxy-saving plan, but the one-step action. A text to a friend, a 30-minute walk, a boundary with a person. Do that one thing, and let the next one appear. And a brief prayer offered simply, Father, we bring our confusion and our hunger. Grant us steady hearts, discernment for small choices, and the courage to do the honest work of healing. Help us to soften where we need to soften, and to stand firm where love requires boundaries. Amen. As we finish, remember the frame we began with. Chaos is often the first language of a deeper ordering. What looks like dismantling is frequently the clearing necessary for new structure. The mess is the initiation. The meaning comes with integration. Keep tender with yourself. Stay humble. Protect your atmosphere. Trust small nudges. Let gratitude anchor you. Seek help when needed. And above all, hold to this truth. Being chosen for awakening does not make you better than others. It makes you responsible for love. If you want a practical next step, I've created a short guided reflection you can download to help you take the first small step toward grounding and clarity. 1 page, 3 practices, 10 minutes. If this message has touched you, get that guide and use it this week as an experiment. The best isn't coming. The best is already here. Welcome home.